Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. So this is a live discussion organized by Euro Central Asian Lesbian Community, ELC. And this is a part of our series Lesbian Genius Talks, which are always uploaded to our website. And today we are really happy and proud to have some activists from Belarus and also other speakers and supporters. But first of all, of course, it's activists from Belarus. And we are going to talk about what is happening right now in Belarus and also about the role and visibility or invisibility of women and queer women, lesbian women, queer persons in this space and in these events. And I think I will just start from introducing to you our amazing speakers. So we have today with us Natallia Mankouskaya, who is a human rights defender, and she's from Belarus, from Identity and Law Initiative Group. So Natasha, maybe you can just say hi.
Hi everyone.
And also we have Vika Biran, who is a co-founder of MAKEOUT and co-author of Lesbians on a Swamp podcast, also from Belarus.
Hello, hello.
Then we also have with us Oksana Pokalchuk, my dear friend, and also a head of Amnesty International in Ukraine, who is joining us today to also provide some information about Ukrainian context and maybe some ideas on how we can support Belarus in this time. And also we have Senat Sultanaliyeva, who is right now, I think, in Japan. And Senat will be helping with translation or interpretation for Natallia if needed. Unfortunately, we were not able to organize this talk in two languages at the same time, and I can imagine that it would be important for some people from, let's say, Eastern Europe to also to have access to at least the Russian language. But unfortunately, we have English today. And yeah, and my name is Kseniya Kirichenko. I'm a board member of the European Euro Central Asian, Lesbian Community LC, and I have also another hat, which is a program coordinator at ILGA World. But today I'm moderating this discussion, and again, I'm really happy and proud to have all the people joining and all the activists, especially people from Belarus. So the last thing I would like to mention is the topic or the title of our discussion, which is "Do protests have a lesbian woman's face?" A Lesbo-Feminist talk with Belarusian activists. So the thing is that this expression, lesbian woman's face, it's actually a reference to a book written by a Belarusian writer and journalist and activist Svetlana Alexievich. And one of her books was about "У войны не женское лицо" in Russian, or in English it was translated as "Unwomanly Face of War." And it's, I would say, a very important book, a collection of oral histories of women who participated in the Second World War. But like, we are not speaking today about the Second World War, but it's about like female gaze, and also to we want to discuss how actually women and queer persons are involved and if they are visible in the protest today. And also Svetlana Alexievich, I know that she participated in the protests, and she participates right now in the coordination committee of civil society, but I'm sure that like, this is just my small bit, and I'm sure that Natallia and Vika would be able to share more about this. That's it for the introduction, and I would like to ask, let's say, Vika, just to tell us, and then also Natasha, to tell us what is happening in Belarus and what does it mean for you, and just generally, very simple things, and how are you feeling in this right now?
First, I want to say that I'm in Berlin right now. I had my flight yesterday or before yesterday, I don't remember, because I'm living in between to these cities, Minsk and Berlin. But then I had a guest, my friend who is also an activist. She came from Krakow, and we were reading on my balcony different news about all these events which are happening in Belarus. And we decided to fly there together and to continue our fight and just be with people on the streets. So for me, it was mostly about, and it's still a lot about solidarity, and see a lot of people who are sharing your values, but on a very, let's say, basic level. It doesn't mean that all these people have some kind of queer feminism lenses, or that they are super involved in solving transgender people problems or whatever. But for now, it's a super basic level of solidarity which people are need. And what's happening now is that people who are afraid to talk about their desires started to use their voice. Maybe it's not super loud for someone for now, but I'm waiting a lot for a moment when my mom, for example, who is working at the same place in the pharmacy for 30 years, will go to the street together as other women to share her thoughts about everything what's happening. So yeah, I could call it a revolution. I can argue with the term feminist revolution, but for me, definitely it is.
Thank you, Vika. Thanks a lot.
Да, возможно, я немножко хотела бы ввести в курс наших слушательниц, слушателей о том, что происходит. Сегодня в Беларуси уже 13-й день протеста, и за это время около 7 тысяч людей были арестованы, избиты, несколько сотен людей попали в больницы, и как минимум...
Чтобы с переводом.
Да, и как минимум трое людей погибли.
So I would just like to start maybe with giving a background information about what's happening in Belarus right now in Minsk. So it's the 13th day of protests right now, and so far we have about 7,000 people who were arrested and beaten up by the police, by the law enforcement. About hundreds were arrested as well. There were сотни человек, что было?
Сотни человек оказались в больнице с разными травмами, в том числе очень серьезными, которые угрожают их жизни.
So hundreds of people are in hospitals with serious damages to their health and to their physical safety in general, and 3 people have died.
В том числе погибли люди и из-за пыток, которые к ним применялись, и из-за оружия, которое было к ним применено. То есть против людей применяли светошумовые гранаты, резиновые пули, слезоточивый газ, ну, в том числе стреляли просто в толпу и бросали гранаты именно в людей.
The causes of death include also tortures that people had to endure while in detention, as well as use of arms and weapons by the law enforcement when dispersing the protests, and they were using different kinds of weapons which would not be allowed for usage.
Ну, то есть, конечно, такой беспрецедентный уровень насилия, с которым мы никогда в нашей стране не сталкивались в мирное время, привел к тому, что тысячи людей выходят на акции, люди на заводах и фабриках устраивают забастовки, в том числе на государственном телевидении. То есть я, конечно, могла бы очень многое про это рассказывать, я просто хочу, чтобы было понятно, в каком мы сейчас все состоянии, что здесь, правда, есть очень много боли и страха.
This is an unprecedented level of violence against people by the state. And this violence has actually incited more and more people, so thousands of people, to join the protests. And this is truly pain for the people of Belarus. And, you know, we have already sort of different protests and actions happening at the factories and plants. So all kinds of people are joining together. And I could, of course, say more about what's happening in Belarus right now, but I thought this sort of could give a brief background or introduction into the situation.
И на протяжении всех этих дней я и мои прекрасные подруги, соратницы, коллежанки, женщины, которые я знаю, и мужчины, независимо от относятся они к ЛГБТ-сообществу в том числе или не относятся. Все мы выходим на улицу, все мы поддерживаем друг друга, все мы участвуем в каких-то активностях солидарности, и я сегодня могу быть горда тем, что я белоруска. За очень долгое время это новое для меня ощущение.
So throughout these days, I, together with my friends and many other people, regardless of whether they belong to LGBT community or not, we're all joining the protests every day, and we're all going to the streets. And I think for me, it's the first time when I can say that I'm proud to be Belarusian, and it's a new feeling for me.
Merci.
Yeah, thank you very much, Natalia. And if I understand correctly, you are in the country right now. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, you are there, and also just maybe as a note that sometimes, as probably some of you heard, sometimes there are also problems with the internet in Belarus. So if this will happen, just this is what could happen, but. We hope, of course, that Natalia will be able to stay with us for this hour. And thank you so much once again for joining. And yeah, we just send to you a lot of support from all parts of Europe and Central Asia in general. So I noticed that both you and Vika were talking about solidarity and the fact that there are different people from different backgrounds, not necessarily LGBTI activists joining. And so what is it for you? And because you have been involved in LGBTI or queer movement in one way or another before, but what is happening right now, how would you describe it? Is it just like a general thing for all the country? So let's say it's like a national identity or the national problem which you are trying to solve with the support from all the people in Belarus? Or do you still somehow reflect on your position in this as a queer activist or as women?
For me, it's about women in the process of making political decisions who are not objects anymore, but they have their own voice, so they're subjects. But at the same time, usually when I'm sharing some information on Belarus with my people, with my new friends, I'm always trying to present it from at least two different versions, because this is part of reality we are living in. For example, there is dependent and independent media. There is different writers' unions. There is different journalist association and so on. So even during this revolution and women participating on it, I can also present it from two different sides. From the one side, yeah, there is three different women who are recognized. We know their faces. There is women on the street also as well, and they're walking there in different white dresses with the flowers, and they have power and they're strong and they have their voice. But from the other hand, if to go deeper into the context on how these women became so popular and how they appeared, we will see that one of them is the wife of the person who was a candidate to be president. The second, the same situation. And the third one is a trusted person of a guy who is also in jail now. So all these men we are talking about, they are in jails or they just escaped from the country. Regarding these three women who are the most popular and whose image we can find in different media, just one of them is in the country now. So yeah, that's my part, and I'll stop here for a moment and will give Natasha a word.
Да, действительно, в некоторых медиа сейчас эта революция называется феминистической. Да, здесь можно спорить. Я бы хотела сказать, что то, как женщины репрезентируются сейчас, выглядит скорее несколько консервативным, даже несмотря на большую и высокую роль их, как вот прекрасное трио наших политикес, или то, как мы, как женщины, выходим, то, как мы можем, ну, допустим, презентовать идею мира, идею ненасилия. Да, это скорее связано с консервативным образом, там, женщины-матери, женщины-хранительницы. Да, мы используем этот образ для того, чтобы быть услышанными. То есть я полагаю, что это делается, конечно, очень сознательно, и очень сознательно, в том числе Светлана Тихановская говорит, что она не политик, она домохозяйка, она хочет жарить котлеты. И тем не менее, я полагаю, что именно основываясь на этом образе, женщина-политик все-таки смогла получить такую народную поддержку. Да, этот образ консервативный, да, женщины в белых платьях с цветами — это тоже консервативный образ. Но я себя чувствую, в принципе, в какой-то степени комфортно даже и в этих условиях. То есть я понимаю, что все пройдет революция, мы снова там будем ссориться, снова будем, я имею в виду с консервативными силами, мы снова будем продвигать феминистическую повестку и, например, борьбу против насилия с феминистической повестки, они будут как-то с консервативной, но, тем не менее, то, что сейчас мы видим, это то, что мужчины в такой роли вряд ли смогли бы чувствовать себя органично, потому что для женщины, ну, в нашем обществе разрешено быть уязвимой, там, разрешено плакать, там, разрешено уехать за границу, например, когда на тебя давят. То есть мужчина в такой ситуации в нашем консервативном обществе, ну, не смог бы пользоваться все еще той поддержкой, которой пользуется Светлана Тихановская. То есть мужчины, которые, допустим, стали бы обнимать солдат срочной службы, тоже не получили бы такой поддержки, как женщины в обществе.
If I didn't forget anything, so yes, in some media, this revolution is being called as a feminist revolution, but this is up for debate, because the way women are represented in the media right now is a very conservative sort of representation, regardless of the trio of our women politicians. Or how we as women and, you know, queer people, LGBT people are participating in all these street actions. Yeah, it's all sort of it's all covered by this conservative image of women as a mother, women as a wife or a daughter. So very kind of, in a way, vulnerable sort of image. But at the same time, I can see that the women are using this politically to be heard. So especially, for example, to Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, she's receiving support specifically because she's kind of referring to this image of herself as a mother, of herself as a wife, and she's kind of using this to explain that she doesn't want the power. She just wants to stay home and, you know, cook and, you know, take care of her children. So yes, it is a conservative image, but it's working for now. Of course, we understand that after the revolution, we will probably go back to, you know, fighting for the feminist agenda. The conservatives are still going to be, you know, we're still going to be sort of hounded by the conservative images. But for now, this is working. And I also see that, for example, men would not be able to do what Svetlana Tikhanovskaya is being able to do right now, because for men, it's not allowed to show emotions, not allowed to be vulnerable. So they would not be able to, you know, show their sort of care for the nation. They would not be able to hug, you know, or, you know, take care of the wounded soldiers, or to be able to, you know, leave the country for another country at the threat of, you know, towards their family members or something like that, which is what Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has done, and she still has the support of people. Men would not be able to do that at the same time.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspectives and sharing your experiences. And just for people who are watching us or listening to us on Facebook, please, if you have any questions, you can leave your questions on our Facebook page. And at the end of this talk, we will also have some time to answer your questions. So again, I think from my perspective, and I'm originally from Russia, and also like I do understand that Russia is like very imperialistic in this context part. Therefore, if I'm saying something wrong, just tell me. But I think that in this region, it's a very specific case when women are actually so visible politically and so visible in the protest movement, in the revolution generally. For example, like it's not, let's say, the normal or the usual case when a woman actually is running for a presidency and when she is apparently receiving so much votes from people. And so what do you think, Vika and Natalia, like why that happened? So that your main oppositional candidate, it was a woman. So that we saw women, yes, wearing white clothes and also holding flowers, but women, they were women who were in the streets. And like, I think it's a very special case. And like, why that happened? Why do you think, what changed maybe in the society, or what was the reasons for this high visibility of women, and what does it mean specifically for you?
I would like to start maybe. So first part, I would like to dedicate to the theory that, on my opinion, with Svetlana Tikhanovskaya as a president and before as a candidate to be president, it happened occasionally. So before, all discussions were around this man who wanted to be president. There was just one lady in between them, but she was not super visible and she was not recognized as a very serious противник, as a very serious enemy or candidate, whatever. And I'll stop here because I forgot the second part. Natasha, help me, please.
Да, как я уже говорила, то есть мне кажется, что женщины здесь смогли почувствовать и быть в русле этого общественного запроса к женщине. Я просто хотела бы еще упомянуть, что с другой стороны тоже были женщины. То есть в этой кампании Александр Лукашенко, ну, очень мало, на самом деле, смотрел, он практически не вел какую-то агитацию. За него вступались тоже женщины. Наталья Качанова, представитель Совета Республики, Наталья Эйсмонт, это его пресс-секретарь, там, допустим, заместительница министра здравоохранения, там, с которым мы много работаем. То есть, с другой стороны, тоже было много женщин. Пожалуйста, сенатор.
Women, I think in this case, were able to feel and sort of like be in the flow of the popular demand. But before I go there, I just wanted to also mention that on the other side, there were also women who were sort of promoting or like speaking or lobbying for Lukashenko. And there were several women, for example, like the Deputy Minister of Health with whom we work. So there were also a lot of women on the other side.
И для женщин во время этой кампании и до нее, вот то, что случилось вот перед президентской кампанией, вот эта эпидемия COVID-19, ну, стала таким значительным вызовом, когда стало ясно, что Александр Лукашенко не может справиться с вызовами безопасности, потому что женщины, ну, традиционно более уязвимая социальная группа, допустим, чем по сравнению с мужчинами. Когда стало ясно просто, что люди умирают, и эта информация скрывается, и о медицинских работниках никто не заботится, а большая часть их тоже женщины, то есть о пенсионерах никто не заботится, их большая часть женщины. То есть во многом можно говорить, что и женщины, как избирательницы, осознали себя как людей, о чьих интересах никто не заботится. И в том числе выразительницей этих интересов стала другая женщина. Да?
So for women before and during the campaign, one of the biggest, I guess, issues that became sort of a wake-up call for them was the COVID-19 pandemic and the way Lukashenko was dealing with it, or rather not dealing with it. So basically, women realized that he's not really doing anything, and nobody in the country is actually taking care of them or thinking of them, because Lukashenko was basically, covering up the numbers, the real numbers, and women took the main sort of the grunt of the work of dealing with the pandemic, seeing people die, seeing the elderly die, because women are sort of heavily represented in the areas that were sort of on the front lines of dealing with the pandemic. So yes, so women realized that they, like, if not them, then nobody would be able to speak up on their behalf. So they had to, so they kind of realized themselves as these as voters, as somebody who has a voice.
И кроме того, я думаю, что очень большое значение играл такой очень ярко выраженный сексизм со стороны Лукашенко, когда он говорил, что прошлой кандидатке, своей сопернице на прошлых выборах, что она человек в юбке, что человек в юбке не может управлять страной, что наша конституция в Беларуси не под женщину сделала, там, она свалится бедная, если на нее это все положить, что президентом может быть только тот, кто служил в армии. Ну и понятное дело, что это все ложилось на то недовольство действующей власти, которое уже есть в обществе, уже созрело. И получается, вот эти идеи, которые, может быть, в другое время могли бы и отозваться, но понятное дело, белорусское общество консервативное, не готово видеть женщину президентом. Но раз Лукашенко против, значит, наверное, это что-то хорошее. Женщина-президент.
Another big influence, I guess, in all of this was that was Lukashenko's sexism, especially when he was talking about the previous candidate, who was also a woman. He was referring to her as a human in a skirt, as somebody who's weak and who would not be able to deal with the, with the pressures of being a president. That the constitution was not written to be carried out by a woman. That she cannot basically deal with it. That the president can only be somebody who served in the army. So all of this coincided with sort of the already like gathering up kind of dissatisfaction with Lukashenko's policies and general attitude. For people, I guess it was that if Lukashenko is against this, then we're going to be for it, then we're going to support it.
Ну и получилось так, что Светлана, кроме того, очень искренний человек, и она искренне говорит, что она не хочет быть президентом, и это очень важно, потому что Лукашенко очень хочет быть президентом, просто выпрыгивает там из штанов, чтобы только остаться президентом, но Светлане это не нужно, и это очень привлекает людей, то есть и мужчин, и женщин в том числе. У меня все.
And also the last thing, I guess, is that Svetlana is very sincere. She sincerely doesn't want to be a president, whereas Lukashenko really wants to be. He's obsessed with power. So it is important for people to see that she doesn't want this power. That's it.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Thank you. And maybe I would like just to go to Oksana right now, because Oksana is from Ukraine, and I know that you also participated actively in different actions around, for example, Maidan in Ukraine and several actually revolutions, and also there were things about participation and visibility or invisibility of women and queer persons there. And the questions about like people participated in the protests and in the revolution, but the question is if they actually benefited from this at the end. And maybe you can just quickly share your experience in Ukraine and maybe to compare it to the extent you can do it with what we see right now in Belarus?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I see that a lot of media try to compare what happened in Belarus and what had happened in Kyiv, in Ukraine. And be honest, I really don't think we can compare these processes. It's just two different processes. But talking about Ukraine, what happened in Kyiv, of course, a lot of women and a lot of queer people participated in the protest. The issue was that, I mean, Ukraine is a quite religious country, even it's a post-Soviet country, and our protest was a little bit colored by these religious issues like God and Ukraine, values, our traditional values are together with God, you know, all the things around religious issues. And I think that's how, that's like, I see this big difference in narratives, what's happening now in Belarus and what had been happening in Kyiv. And I think one of the reasons why woman face was not so visible during the Euromaidan is that this, I would say, pro-religious narrative, because most of work, real work, were done by women. All coordination, help, organization, food, you know, like everything. But it was during the revolution. But when I think it was a couple of ideas that we should be open and we should say that we are women there, like go with banners and say something about our that we are there, we exist. And we faced quite a strong opposition to this idea, because people were saying like it's not the right time to show your political or your like private voice. It's like our own process, and we should say about like these things. We should say about our independence, or about that we want to change the government. But it's not the right time to say that you're a lesbian or you're a woman or you're someone. And I think it was a big mistake that we never done it. Because during the Euromaidan, we never felt any, you know, issues that you're a woman or you're queer or whatever. You're just a part of this movement, and you try to be share your solidarity and help as much as you can. But just a couple of months after, when the revolution finished, or how to say it correctly, like when the government changed, we were so exhausted and so empty inside because of all the deaths and injured people, and you know, and I think that was the very weak moment when those who were more prepared, and there were like political organizations, they took this moment for their visibility. And they used this time after revolution to make pictures, to go publicly in media. And just like 2 months after the revolution, most of media, moreover in international media, have been saying that this revolution were done by far-right groups. And all of us were like, what? I mean, no, it had never been this way. There were women there, there were queer women there were a lot of like just people there. But we failed firstly that we never said it when it's at that moment during the revolution. We saw that it's not the right time, but it was the right time. And second thing, that after the revolution, we were so exhausted we never said that we were there. And it took so much time for us to say again who done it and who was there. But the good thing is that, I mean, now we have the armed conflict on the eastern part of Ukraine, and a lot of people are like, there are a lot of soldiers, And now we have, it's quite a new thing for our country to have armed conflict on your territory. But what we see now is that queer people organizing their inside army, and they have their own organization like queer soldiers in Ukraine. And when they only started, it was really, you know, like, what? Like when we're talking about armed conflict, like about deaths and all this, you know, problems, you cannot say about your things, your own problem issues. But they've done it. They organized this. They founded this organization, and they say publicly, "I'm gay and I'm a soldier," or "I'm gay or I'm a queer person and I'm there." And it's so important, and it's something that changes history now. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Oksana, and thank you also for this note that maybe we should not compare the situations because they are different, and the countries, of course, are very different. So Natallia and Vika, yeah, if you want to maybe to reply to what Oksana said, or maybe you have any reflections on this, or you want to explain how this is happening in Belarus.
Yeah, please. I just want to react on Oksana's words. Thanks for giving us this perspective as well. And now, unfortunately, I can say that there is something in common, because that's what's happening right now. Because people know and understand that it's not the right time go to these protests with rainbow flag, for example. And I, as an LGBTQ activist, as a lesbian as well, were not there with a rainbow flag. I was with a poster against police violence, because it took so much time to realize what do we have in common. So this moment is so fragile, and people are so happy that finally we have it. So they just taken decision, and I'm as well, and some of my colleagues, I can say on their behalf as well, just decided to not put these, let's say, difficult, more deeper issues on this struggle. So now I'm hearing you and realize that exactly the same things are happening now in Belarus. So I wanted to ask you, please, maybe you know how to deal with it, how to struggle with it. I'm trying to find my own decision, and taking part in this discussion can be, part as well. Making different interviews where we are mentioning our queer identity or our activism work within LGBTQ community can be as well. But what else? Because that's what I was mentioned as a basic solidarity on the very beginning. If we'll go deeper, we'll be out. And I don't want to be out, I want to be in. So that's kind of tricky question. Maybe you can add something here. And maybe, Natasha, you also want to share your experience, because probably it's somehow about you as well.
Да, я хотела бы сказать, что я, конечно, здесь тоже проявляю определенную осторожность, и, допустим, лично я не выходила с плакатами, но я там пользовалась теми плакатами, которые были подготовлены. Это плакаты про то, что мы не забудем и не простим, и это действительно так. И я, наверное, хочу поделиться своей, скорее, персональной человеческой точкой зрения, ну, сначала человеческой, потом активистской, хотя это сложно разделить. Как человек, я действительно шокирована тем, что происходит, и как человек я в какой-то степени понимаю, как ни странно, что какая-то часть моей внутренней реальности стала внешней. Ну, то есть я достаточно долго ЛГБТ-активистка, долго правозащитница, то есть так или иначе я всегда делала то, что я сейчас делаю, то есть я пишу жалобы на милицейское насилие, на незаконное задержание, я всегда этим занималась. Сейчас, конечно, масштабы гораздо большие, и насилие гораздо более жестокое. И, как правило, это выглядело как бьешься головой о стену, это чувство бессилия, это, ну, я думаю, что если вы активистки, вы это понимаете, но если даже вы не активистки, но живете в схожем контексте, наверное, тоже вам понятно, о чем я говорю. Kseniya, пожалуйста.
I'm also cautious. So when I was going to the protests, I didn't prepare any sort of banners myself, but I was using the ones that were prepared by the others. So, for example, like, we will not forget it, we will not forgive this. But my personal point of view as a human, as an activist, is that I'm really shocked with what's happening right now, and I feel like some part of my internal sort of reality became external reality in a way, because I've always been, as an activist, I've always been sort of working against police violence and police abuse, for example. So I was writing complaints or submitting complaints using the legal kind of means, and that's what I'm doing right now. Also, I mean, partially as a civil activist, as a citizen of Belarus.
И получается так, что годы, которые я занимаюсь этим, то есть я сталкивалась с тем, что ЛГБТ-людей милиция преследует, милиция избивает, милиция насилует, то есть делает с ними все то же, что сейчас делается со всеми остальными гражданами. То есть получается, что вот эти годы безнаказанности, когда они преследовали какое-то меньшинство, ну, я говорю о ЛГБТ-людях, но можно говорить и о политических активистах, то есть о каком-то меньшинстве. То есть они натренировались на меньшинстве, утвердились своей безнаказанности и теперь распространяют это на все общество. Вот что я имею в виду, когда я говорю, что моя внутренняя личная реальность стала внешней. То есть то, чем мы как меньшинство имели дело, сейчас имеет дело большинство. Пожалуйста.
So throughout the years I've worked against this police abuse. I've seen how they have I've seen their violence towards LGBT people, how they have abused, how they have harassed and even probably raped LGBT people, and now it's doing the same thing as it was doing to LGBT people, to citizens of Belarus who are going to this protest. So basically they have sort of trained all these methods, all these strategies and oppression tactics on us, on the minorities, on LGBT, not just LGBT, of course, but also political prisoners or political opponents. But now they're using all of these tactics against the general population who are going to the streets. And that's what I mean when I say that part of my internal sort of reality has become external reality.
И то, что мы можем как активисты сделать, у меня были мысли о том, что нужно сделать, ну, может быть, не прямо сейчас, может быть, чуть, когда пройдет время какой-то рефлексии. Мы уже начали документировать факты пыток и жестокого обращения по отношению к ЛГБТ-людям. То есть мы видим, что иногда это было как-то более жестоким, то есть особенно к людям мужского гендера применялись, например, какие-то оскорбления, соответствующие гомофобные, то есть и то, что, например, людей насиловали мужчины и женщин, и иногда это случалось на основании там их предполагаемой, например, идентичности, потому что аналогичные факты насилия были по отношению к геям, например, раньше. Или, например, когда трансгендерного человека, ну, не открытого человеку пришлось сказать, что не, я женщина, а сначала его идентифицировали, допустим, как мужчину, ну, потому что имеет, ну, признаки, скорее идентифицирует себя и выглядит как мужчина, его в том числе избивали еще и поэтому из-за этой гендерной неконформности. И мы видим, что, например, одного нашего коллегу-активиста из регионов уже начали публично в одном телеграм-канале про государственном распространять его личные данные, в том числе утверждать, что вот он гей, ну, в таких-то оскорбительных высказываниях, то есть начали преследовать именно из-за его сексуальной ориентации. И мы видим, что и оппоненты режима, и его сторонники друг друга называют разными гомофобными оскорблениями. И мы видим, что роль гомофобии, ЛГБТ-фобии, лесбофобии здесь, ну, достаточно высока, хотя и не исчерпывается, конечно, все насилие этим. Kseniya, спасибо, ты мне продолжишь.
So as activists, like what we can do as activists right now is we can maybe later also do that, but what we have started now is we have started documenting cases of violence against LGBT people during the protests specifically, and we see that this violence is sort of extra violent towards LGBT participants of the protest, specifically because of the homophobia of the police, of the law enforcement officers in general. And this is especially clear when there are cases when the police are, for example, detaining somebody who they think is a man, or like they're perceiving them as a man, but the person will say, I'm a woman, or the vice versa, when we have these cases of especially gender nonconformity, or perhaps when police are maybe have some preconceived notions that a person who looks a certain way is probably gay, then they will be more violent and more abusive towards them. And we can see this because similar sort of abuse and violence they would use previously before during their harassment and abuse of LGBT people in general. And also we are already seeing that public pro-government Telegram channels or social media influencers in general are kind of starting to bully people on the basis of their sexual orientation, gender identity, distributing or dispersing information about their personal details, their address and stuff like that, and sharing that this person is gay or an LGBT person, and this is specifically happening to our colleague right now from the regions. And also, just to finish this off, is that what we are seeing a lot that the opponents in this whole situation, both pro-governmental and against the government protesters, they're using these homophobic slurs against each other. And in general, there is a very high sort of level of homophobia in the public discourse.
И то, что мы еще можем сделать, например, я была очень рада, что мои коллеги из моей организации, из других ЛГБТ-организаций поддержали мою кандидатуру и выдвинули меня в Национальный координационный совет по транзиту. Конечно, я не рассчитываю попасть в основной состав, потому что основной состав уже отобран, но там звучали планы о том, что будет создан расширенный состав совета, какие-то экспертные группы, и мы решили, что здесь очень важно, конечно, нашу повестку, ту, с которой мы очень годы как-то продвигали, в том числе, что насилие со стороны милиции и простых граждан должно расследоваться, то есть вопросы какие-то гендерного перехода, которые мы не можем адвокатировать, то есть вопросы дискриминации, все должны быть представлены в нашей новой Беларуси. И мы, конечно, очень рады, что Светлана Алексеевич вошла в Координационный совет. Она довольно открыто выражалась о том, что она относится к квир-сообществу. И мы бы хотели видеть в ее лице, конечно, во-первых, авторитетного человека, во-вторых, авторитетного человека, который продвигает наши интересы как ЛГБТ-сообщества. Ну и, конечно же, мы обязательно будем делать истории ЛГБТ-людей, которые были на этих протестах, были на революции, какую роль они играли здесь. Например, моя прекрасная подруга Дарья Трайден была там первой, которая стала обнимать солдат срочной службы возле Дома правительства, когда мы пришли туда, они стали выходить напротив нас. Это было, конечно, очень сильное высказывание, которое там разошлось и в позитивном, и в почему-то негативном смысле, но это было, и фотографии есть. И спасибо, Оксана, большое за то, что предупреждаете нас об этой опасности. Мы постараемся сделать так, чтобы не было забыто, например, наша роль здесь, и не было забыто те страдания людей, которые к этому привели.
So what we can also do to avoid sort of like the scenario as it happened in Ukraine, right, is we can also nominate each other to different sort of governmental, or not governmental, to different decision-making sort of bodies that are being formed right now in the transition period. So, for example, I was nominated into this National Coordination Council on Transition, and I'm very thankful to all my friends and my colleagues and comrades in arms, and actually activists who are doing this. So I think it's important for us to be represented as much as possible in these kind of bodies, so that we can include and voice our agenda in the bringing about this new Belarus. So we can through this participation in these bodies, we can make sure that that there is work going to be done against abuse, police abuse and police violence, against general, ordinary people, citizens, against LGBT or any kinds of minority people. Also, it is an opportunity for us to finally be heard on term regarding the gender marker issues for trans people, for example. Another thing is Svetlana Alexievich is also included part of this council, and for me this is also specifically very especially important because she has more or less clearly identified herself or allied herself with the LGBT community, or as being part of it. So her participation is important because she is somebody who is respected, somebody who is known by and accepted by the whole society. So so her sort of allyship will be very significant for us. And of course, another thing that we can do is do stories of people, of LGBT people who were participating in this protest, so that it's not forgotten. So, for example, my beautiful friend who was among the first who started embracing wounded soldiers, and some of the words that she has said have been, spread wide, both positively and sometimes for some reason negatively, are being used and referred to with regards to the protest in Belarus. So we want this to be, documented, and we want this to be remembered. And thank you, Oksana, for warning us, for telling us how it could be. We will try our best not to repeat these things, and we'll try our best to be heard and to not be forgotten.
Thank you, Natalya and Vika. And I think also Vika specifically asked a question to Oksana. Oksana, do you want to comment maybe for a couple of minutes, and then we can go to questions?
Sure. So what can be done? I think Natalya already said that it's quite important to note stories and after to share them. And if it's possible to share stories that happen particular to LGBT or women, or to queer people, if it's possible saying that they were more severely beaten up or whatever because they are seen to be gay, or I don't know, police presumed something, that's important to mention all the time, because even Amnesty, we in our last statement, we mentioned this moment that men mostly, of course, but that's what we gathered this information, that men who had long hair or tattoos, they are beaten up more severely than others. So it's important to have this, to saying it all the time, that like we are like police beating up more severely this kind of people, and it's not okay. To beating people, it's not okay, but to, because of some reason, it's not okay. And mention it all the time. It should be part, it should, I'm saying like, I'm giving you an advice. It's like only my opinion. But I think it's very important to put into the biggest narrative this feeling, and like new Belarus should be without discrimination. Everyone is equal. Something about this, like equality is important. No one should be beaten up, moreover, because he has like long hair or she look like not feminine enough as policemen want her to be. Like this, So very important to put equality into this narrative of new Belarus. Because when we had our revolution here in Euromaidan, it was more about, okay, we build new Ukraine, and new Ukraine is very Eurocentric. Like we have, we have our new, how to say it, like way, and our way is Europe. that's not enough, because Europe is very different, and Europe is a Poland, and Europe is like Sweden, and you know, so what Europe we want to be. That's why my feeling now is we were lost here in Ukraine after the revolution, because we never it was not clear where we are going to. And where we lost is that we never put equality as a part of new Ukraine. And that's what we are doing now. And if you can include it somehow into slogans, into, you know, feelings that we should be equal, and that I think will help you a lot after. Thank you.
Thank you, Oksana. So we have, maybe we will just spend 5 or 10 minutes to answer questions from the audience. And again, for those of you who are following us on Facebook, please type your question and leave your questions there. So we already had some questions. There was a question about, well, my favorite question, how can we support? How can we support Belarus? So Vika, Natalia, and then maybe Oksana, maybe you would like also to share your experience and what you do at Amnesty.
Я могу начать, наверное. Ну, конечно, самый очевидный путь сейчас – это пожертвовать деньги инициативе Buy Help. То есть там сейчас есть 2 направления помощи. Одно из них – это помощь репрессированным, помощь пострадавшим на штрафы, на лечение, то есть тем водителям, у кого там забрали автомобиль, то есть помощь на адвокатов, помощь там на госпошлины. То есть это огромная часть помощи, которая будет принята с благодарностью, потому что очень многим людям еще придется долго лечиться, ходить к психологам. Это сотни людей, травмированных как морально, так и физически. И второе направление – это помощь бастующим рабочим, потому что забастовка сейчас очень важна, и это реальный путь экономического давления на режим, и на бастующих рабочих просто огромное давление. И здесь вы можете реально помочь как-то небольшой, любой суммой, которую, я думаю, что там потом разместят на Фейсбуке реквизиты. Kseniya, пожалуйста.
So I guess the most obvious way that you can help right now is to donate to buy.help, I think, right? Where we have 2 sort of directions, I guess, or like, yeah, of help. The first one is helping. Your donations would help those who are arrested, those who are detained, those who lost their jobs, and more specifically those who were traumatized, who are in hospitals right now, because there's going to be a huge consequences for everyone who basically was abused during the protest, either psychological or physically. And the second direction of support would be to supporting protesting workers, because they are right now experiencing huge pressure against them by the by the state in general, because of course, you know, they're the backbone of the economy of Belarus, so there's a lot of pressure, and it would be really important to support them. There is probably not information yet, but there will be more information on how we can support the workers.
Да, и кроме того, конечно, если вы делаете какие-то акции протеста у себя в стране, это все мы замечаем, это большая поддержка для нас, то есть любые акции. Если вы можете как-то воздействовать, если у вас есть контакты там с вашим правительством, особенно если вы там живете в ЕС, то есть очень важно, чтобы внимание к Беларуси не затухало и действительно чтобы были введены санкции, чтобы Лукашенко не признавали президентом, чтобы были приняты, правда, серьезные меры.
And also, if you are organizing actions and protests in your cities, in your countries, we notice all of them and we are very grateful. So that's also another way you could support us. And also important is if you have any kind of connection or any kind of, communication with your governments, it would be also very helpful for them to not, recognize Lukashenko as a president, to maybe introduce sanctions against his government, against his regime, and to just generally sort of make sure that, attention to Belarus does not go away.
I would like to add few options as well. First, if you have some colleagues or ex-colleagues or some friends or someone else in Belarus, please write to these people and ask them what kind of support do they need. Write them some comments. It's very helpful because sometimes we are living with the feeling that no one don't really care about what's happening because this world is full of different terrible events, you know. So yeah, just give us some of your attention. We really need it, and we can tell you by ourselves with different individual cases what do we really need. And the second option is something about please continue do what you usually do if you're writing articles, if you're making podcasts, if you're an artist, if you're making illustrations, if you're translating something, please, there is a big variety of options how you can highlight the topic of police violence and discrimination and dictatorship, which is happening in Belarus right now.
Thank you, Vika. Oksana, do you want?
Yeah, coming back to 5-6 already years ago when it was Euromaidan, for us was important to feel support from other countries. Very important was seeing that in different cities, a lot of people are going on the street and supporting us. That's what we're doing here in Ukraine. With Amnesty, we already had 3 public actions in front of Belarus embassy here. First was before elections, where we had been saying things about inequality and all this persecution of women before elections, and 2 more more than Amnesty. I think that every day here in Kyiv we have this or there, and it means something about Belarus. It's really, I think since last 6 years, our society never was so active. And there's a lot of even paint, you know, on the street with Belarus flag and many, many other things. And it's so active here because for us it's very important. So if it's important for you, so I call everyone just to go on the street, staying in front of Belarus embassy, or just, you know, doing something online just to share support. Support is important. And of course, money is something that we don't want to talk about, but you know, when people are staying alone there, and if people, like we have here people who saying that there's a credible source, I do think that it's important to support in money and support in solidarity.
Thank you, Oksana. And also, Natasha, maybe you can send to our chat a donation so that we can also share it. Yeah, and I would also, like, if I can, I would agree with this thing about money and donations, and also just to share with you that I was like reading some discussions, and maybe Natasha and Vik, maybe you would correct me, but people were saying that an average salary in Belarus is like $150 to $100. So also for all of you to understand what's the level of generally of like economic resources which people have, and especially like in this time, it probably is, it's even more difficult. I have also a question. I do not really understand this question. No one so far really understood this question, but maybe you will be able to answer it. In our news, is the story that people on the media or news, I think in Belarus, are being replaced by Russian people. Is this true? I can just say that at least one Russian person was in the protest here in Geneva, and it was me. So some people are there, but I'm sure it's not everything. So maybe Natasha, Vika, maybe you can comment on this.
Unfortunately, it is true. So this person is asking about the main national propaganda TV channel called BT in Narod. So people call it BT. And people are striking everywhere, also in this television, who are showing different pro-government propaganda news, and even during this shooting and violence which was happening on the street, there was nothing showed on this TV channel. So when people decided to strike, President said, you know, it's not a problem. So he hired some people from Russia Today or from some other propaganda Russian media who knows exactly how to do this kind of job. So that was a sign, you will strike, I don't care. We have someone who can replace you. So it is true, unfortunately.
Yeah. Может быть, я добавлю тоже, но вопрос еще о том, что сейчас в информационном поле России как-то пытается искусственно быть раздутым конфликт в Беларуси, как конфликт между Западом и Востоком, чего у нас, например, нету, в отличие от Украины, и какой-то искусственно создается языковой вопрос, ну, как будто кто-то хочет запретить русский язык в Беларуси, но чего у нас не происходит. И, например, как-то акцию врачей, которые требовали от министра здравоохранения пустить их задержанным в изоляторах временного содержания, то есть врачей не пускали к травмированным людям, врачи протестовали против этого, и эту акцию комментирует не местный белорусский врач, а вообще какой-то российский врач. То есть, ну, получается, что российские медиа не дают голоса самим белорусским людям, а стараются это представить как какой-то конфликт между Западом и Востоком, который инспирирован США почему-то, хотя тут никто не помнит про США вообще. К сожалению, ну, вот как-то так вот получается российские медиа.
So I can also add that right now the information sort of discourse in Russia seems to be kind of artificially creating a conflict between the East and West of Belarus, which has never been an issue ever in the country. And according to their coverage, it's apparently being supported somehow by the USA, who nobody remembers even anymore in Belarus. Nobody cares about them. There's also this artificially language issue that's being blown out of proportion, or even just generally just artificially created, because it's never, it has never been an issue that somebody wants to reject Russian language or prohibit usage of Russian language. It's not an issue. Also there have been cases when actions or strikes and protests of Belarusian doctors were commented not by somebody from Belarus, but by a random Russian doctor. So they don't even want to give voice to local people, but giving away these voices to the Russians.
И я разместила ссылку на Facebook страницу Buy Help, где вы можете пожертвовать деньги.
And I shared the link to the Buy Help page, which is on Facebook.
And Kseniya, I would like to correct you somehow. It's not 150. So for now, factory workers who are going to strike, they're offered to receive €500 per month for 3 months as their salary for the period when they lost their job, and probably will find some more, just to make it clear. But of course, some people have 150 as well, like my sister, for example, but it's not a super common situation as well. Yeah.
Thank you. So we are a bit running out of time, but we still have some questions. I think some of these questions we already touched during our discussion, but there are questions I think they're very interesting. One of them is if there were any inclusive directions in Svetlana Tikhanovskaya's program towards queer people or LGBTI people. Okay, no, very simple answer.
Я больше того скажу, да, к сожалению, Светлана Тихановская проявляет несколько гомофобные позиции, то есть говорит, что не хотела бы, чтобы это видели ее дети. Ну, возможно, ее позиция, конечно, могла бы быть скорректирована, допустим, если бы она слышала гражданское общество. Я думаю, что она, может быть, просто как большинство людей в Беларуси не вполне представляет себе, что такое ЛГБТ-сообщество. Ну, вот на данный момент так.
I will even add more, is that unfortunately Svetlana Tikhanovskaya has a homophobic position, and she has mentioned several times that she would rather not have this kind of issues, but maybe this could be explained by the fact that she, just like the general sort of population of Belarus, she's not aware in general what LGBT means and what are LGBT people and LGBT communities. So maybe this can still be, rectified in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. And the last question, are there any lessons that can be learned from, I think, by other queer activist communities in Europe now, for example, in Russia or Poland? I don't know, maybe it's more a question for queer activists from other European countries, but still, like, do you think there are any lessons from your experience which could be learned by other?
I would say that we are in this experience right now, and I hope we'll have some time in the future to analyze how it was and what it was. But for now, I can't really answer this question yet.
Мне сложно сказать, я могу какие-то очень общие вещи сказать, ну, например, советы активистам, потому что я понимаю, что ЛГБТ-активисты во многих странах сталкиваются с чувством безнадежности, когда вы там чувствуете, что правые силы активизируются, что, может быть, все ваши усилия зря, что там у вас консервативное правительство, у вас какой-то правый поворот. Ну да, вы можете посмотреть на нас немножко, и, может быть, вам станет чуть полегче. Ну, это, конечно, была шутка. На самом деле, я считаю, что, да, мы чувствуем часто бессилие и безысходность, но, например, посмотрите, как вот за 2 месяца Беларусь просто изменилась. То есть мы сейчас чувствуем, многие мои друзья звонят мне и говорят, ну, а что сейчас нас просто раздавят. Ну, я говорю, ну, смотрите, правда, никто не мог подумать, что власти Лукашенко можно что-то противопоставить. Это оказалось просто монолитом. Ну, вот как есть книга про распад Советского Союза, это было навсегда, пока не кончилось. Ну, точно так же я предлагаю смотреть и на все сложности, с которыми мы как активисты и активистки сталкиваемся.
Of course, it's difficult to say specifically, but maybe in a general way, my advice would be is that, or just thoughts, is that LGBT people in many countries are, of course, feeling hopeless and, despondent a lot of the times because of the, the rise of the ultra-right or the right groups and, the right turns in the countries in general. So maybe in this situation, you could be inspired by us. That's a joke, because of course we and my friends and the LGBT community in Belarus is also very, felt very hopeless, and we understand how you feel. But at the same time, look at how things have changed completely, like in very significant ways over the past 2 months. Nobody thought that, that Lukashenko's power, which we thought was, this huge monolith that is unmovable, nobody thought that, this can be changed, but it is changing. So maybe you could be, thinking like this in this way, that, nothing is unchangeable.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think that's it for now. And just thank you so much, Natallia and Vika specifically. And I can imagine, but only to some extent, like how it's difficult for you. And just if we can support you somehow, just know that we are here, and we are here for you also, and if we can do anything, just let us know. And specifically, so we will share the link to the donation, and please participate if you can. Also, if there are any protests, just join them and support our friends, colleagues, friends and colleagues of Natallia and Vika. And yeah, thank you so much. And also thank you, Oksana, for sharing experiences of Ukraine, which is also like very important for us also to know and not to forget. And the visibility of queer people, it's also important. And thank you, Senat, for helping with the translation. It was really valuable.
Спасибо большое.
Again, sorry that we were not able to organize this talk at least in 2 languages, but maybe in the future. And thank you, Elsie. So our next talk will be about Poland. Maybe you've heard that there are some bad things around political situation in Poland, specifically when it comes to LGBTI persons. And this talk will be available online. Please join ELC social media and follow us for all upcoming Lesbian Genius talks and projects. And thank you everyone once again, but specifically thank you, Natallia and Vika. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.